Let's talk about that. Let's talk about you. 'Cause our host Dow and John wanna hear about the fishing you do. 'Cause we took our garments to the ends of the sea. The red hot led us where we needed to be. Nothing we can't find in all the water. We wanna hear about the holes and the beds and the reef, the keepers and the roughs and the catch and release. Let's talk about everything from reel to bobber behind the Chartplotter. Yeah.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Garmin's Marine Podcast, Behind the Chartplotter, where we talk to pro anglers, industry insiders, and our occasional secret guest. As always, a special thanks to the Marty Ray Project for that great intro song. We're your host. I'm Dal Thornton.
And I'm John Spittle.
John, how are you doing?
Doing great, Dal.
Yeah, a little cool weather came in last night. Hopefully the fishing gets fired up.
Little cool weather here in Central Florida. Yes, sir.
Yep. And John, speaking of weather, I was at the local fishing store, basically our hangout, the other day, and a group of captains and I started discussing the Garmin, the GXM 54 antenna. And the discussion was really about the GXM 54 and how it has become one of the most valuable tools on the boat over the past year and a half. I know we're going to talk to our special guest about the GXM 54, but I know you've been using it. What's your thoughts on the impact and the importance of the GXM 54?
Yeah, the GXM 54, which when you couple it with that SiriusXM fish mapping subscription, is just incredible. It can help you target certain species of fish and help you locate them. There's a lot of different information that you're going to get there. You're going to get, weather information. You're going to get sea temperatures, plankton counts, weed lines. So what we have out there is just incredible. We were at a fishing tournament a little bit over a year ago, and I had a captain come up to me and he said, "All right, where are the fish going to be at during this tournament?" So I had my display there with my GXM 54 and my 8612 XSV and showed him exactly where it was recommending to go for the specific species that they were targeting that tournament. And he was floored because he was pre-fishing for a week prior and it took him that long to kind of locate where the fish were at. And he goes, "That's exactly where we're going." So it'll put you on fish. It'll put you on fish.
That's pretty cool. And, people were talking about, it is a subscription based, like you said. It's not much, but, I look at it like this, John. When I go out, I'm going to easily have to put for my boat, $200 worth of gas in it. Some boats, it's $500-$600 worth of gas. And if you're going to fish 3 or 4 times a month, why would you not want to have the GXM 54 with fish mapping? So instead of me going out running all this gas out and hoping I find fish, chances are, that's going to give me a pretty good chance that I'm going to be on fish with the GXM 54.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, enough small talk. Let's get to today's guest. John, who do we have joining us?
Great. So our guest today is the all-time winningest saltwater tournament angler in the U.S. with 144 titles. He has won 4 Keys tarpon fly fishing tournaments and has taken home Angler of the Year honors from ESPN, FLW, IFA Redfish Tours. You can find him hosting 3 of the most popular fishing shows on TV: Sportsman's Adventures, Florida and Texas Inside Fishing Reports. Let's welcome Captain Rick Murphy. Hey, Rick, how you doing?
Good morning, John. Al, good to be with you guys this morning. How's everybody?
Doing good. Doing really good.
You guys were talking about the GMX 54, and what I think I really like about the combination of Garmin and Sirius is that, John, there's never been in my years of guiding, and I'm going for my 9th renewal of my captain's license as we speak. So that means 40 plus years of having a captain's license. And other than just in the last year and a half or 2 years, we never had the ability to monitor the weather in a 17-foot technical poling skiff or in a 23-foot bay boat. And as you know, here in Florida, it gets kind of dicey in the summer times between June and October. We get our typical afternoon thunderstorms, and to be able to see the intensity and whether they have lightning in them or if they get between you and the boat ramp, of how thick they are and where there may be potentially be a hole. I'll share a story with you. We did a show off of Pulley Ridge, which is 170 miles southwest of Naples. And we did it in August in we ran out early in the morning, and we had a little bit of tropical weather around, but not anything that was named or anything, but there was certainly thunderstorms around. And when it came time to come home at 6:00, we were 172 miles from Naples, and there was a line of showers that went from Key West almost to Tampa and probably 30 miles thick. But they were offshore of the west coast of Florida, probably 20 miles or so. And as we got close, it was dark. Now imagine running a 35-foot center console contender in the dark of night, and all you are doing is staring at your electronics. And my Garmin 8600 series, along with we have night vision, which is a night tracks camera. So we had one screen displaying the black and white night tracks camera to make sure I didn't hit anything close by. And then being able to monitor the weather and the radar through our Garmin radar and the SiriusXM radar, and having that in the two different screens, a split screen on the left with radar and the Sirius precipitation. And then we had our chart on the right screen along with the night tracks. And I never felt more safe, but being able to pick the hole where I was going to punch through, because it did have a lot of lightning in it, and to have two boats with camera boat, and there's a lot of responsibility in staff and making sure that nobody got hurt.
Yep. Well, and you said something really important too there, Rick, was on the 17-foot, poling skiff. You've got the ability now on smaller boats to actually put something on there that's going to give you that kind of information.
Yeah.
So pretty neat. So let's, hey, Dow, you want to get to the real hard-hitting questions, though?
Sure. All right, Captain Rick, first thing, with everything that's been going on this year, what the heck have you been doing over the past few months to cope with the craziness out there?
Well, I mean, certainly the cool part about it is that fishing has been one of those things we could go do. And even though there were some times where the Keys were shut down and they weren't allowing anybody down there early on, the fishing has been really good. And a lot of people are calling to go fishing because they don't have the distraction sports with their kids, whether it's high school football or baseball or even intramural stuff or little league stuff. There's no soccer and cheerleading. And I got to say, I've met a lot of new people, and we're taking a lot of new people fishing, and the fishing's been really, really good. So, that's one of the things I've been doing.
Yeah, we've seen that with, boat sales and obviously retrofits on boats over this past few months. So, it's really, really been a good thing for the industry as a whole. Rick, you and I were talking a few weeks ago, and you just got back from a trip to Guatemala, and you had a really cool story that you told me. Do you mind going ahead and telling the audience about what you actually did down there in Guatemala?
Yeah, no problem. So, we go down there. There's a tournament called the No Sancocho, and basically what that means is that in Spanish is you get the head back. And what that basically is the head of a ballyhoo. And so the idea is a no sancocho is meaning not to have the ballyhoo's head get broke off. But there's this tournament that we go fish, And the first day of the tournament, I fished with my son Ridge, and then Chad Kenny, who is the Lower Coast Region captain for the Texas Insider Fishing Report. And that was the team we put together. And so at the end of the first day, we were tied for first place with an all-ladies team, which consisted of my wife and 4 of her friends. And we had 10 sailfish in one day and a blue marlin. They had 10 sailfish and a blue marlin. We caught our blue marlin on 30 pound and they had theirs on 50. Well, day 2, they kind of ran out to the area where we were. And you guys know as well as I do, if there's a woman fishing, somehow or another, they always catch what's around and we get left on the sideline. I think it's the sense of humor of Mother Nature and God. And, it just was the craziest thing. So at the end of day 2, we dropped from first place to 4th place, and we're behind the girls with 8 sailfish behind them. So I go to the captain on the beginning of the 3rd day, and I said to him, I go, Terry, we've been talking about running to the west for 5 days now. I've been coming to Guatemala since 1994, and every time I come in October, we always seem to fish more towards the west than where we've been fishing, and we haven't been over there. So, the heck with this tournament. If we roll the dice and we don't catch a fish, don't feel bad. But I can't go where we went yesterday and watch all the girls catch the fish and me just for pulling our hair out. And he goes, I could not agree more. So we run 45 miles to the west and stop, and he pulls back on the throttles. We're fishing in a 1961 Merritt that had been all redone. It's like going fishing in a 1969 Chevy Camaro. It's just a classic boat with new Cummins power plants. Anyway, the bottom line is that this tournament gets put on by Casa Vieja Lodge every year, and we put the baits out when we get there, and there's 2 sailfish fighting over the left shore teaser. Well, we were catching fish literally from the time we arrived until the time at 3 o'clock when line's out. So I thought we probably had about 30 fish. So I went up to the captain and I go, Terry, how many did we catch? I said, I really lost track. He goes, Rick, he said, I think we caught over 50. And I go, what?
Wow.
He goes, a sheet of paper is 26 lines, and we got some doubles in here, and we're on a page and a half. So we added it up. We caught 46 sailfish on bait, and I caught 4 on fly. Set a new record for that tournament on a 1-day record, as well as set a new record for the tournament itself. And to be able to do that with my son Ridge, that'll be something that he and I talk about until I die. And it'll probably be something he tells his kids and my grandkids, and it'll just, that's one of those stories that doesn't happen every day. The captain himself, he's been there now for 2 years. He had never caught 50 in a day. So, they have some really big days in Guatemala at Casa Vieja Lodge, but this guy hadn't been involved in any of that. And it was really an epic day of fishing off of the Pacific coast of Guatemala,
Wow, that's a great story. And, I think that comes up on, try something a little bit different when things aren't working out right for you,
You can't be afraid, fishing today is so competitive, and we have so much technology at our fingertips that it's pretty common to have lots of guys in the same place now than what you had before. But it's also a sport that'll really humble you. And I'll reflect to the next weekend, which was last weekend, John. I fished in a Miami, Yamaha Contender Miami Billfish tournament. Just came back. It's been gone for a few years.
Mm-hmm.
So out of 15 teams, we came in 13th.
So you don't always win. So.
No, you go from being a hero to a zero in the 6-day period. I didn't even get the relish in my Guatemalan win. As a joke, I said to my captain here in Miami, I go, "Hey, bub, I'm used to catching 50 a day, so we better get to work."
Well, Dow, I think we're going to cut this podcast a little short because I didn't know who we had on the. No, I'm just kidding.
So, Captain Rick, with all that being said, what's the most common mistake you see with new anglers in their tackle or their technique trying to master offshore fishing for the first time?
Well, I think the biggest thing that we all do is make a mistake, and I think you'll be able to relate to this, Dow, is that we create these expectations a lot of times. You go with something that somebody told you, and so you start building up the expectations of, oh, well, I went with Captain Rick last year this time, and it's going to be the same. And I think that's the single biggest mistake we make as anglers, whether it's inshore, offshore, whether it's freshwater, whether it's saltwater. But I'll say the one thing that we don't do, and I really truly believe this, is the subtle things make huge differences. And that's the difference of winning and not winning. It's being able to recognize that there's one little thing that's slightly different that most people don't recognize. Everybody can catch them when there's fish everywhere.
Right.
But how is it that there's a guy that catches more when there's fish everywhere, day in and day out, or that guy is able to catch them when the fishing's tough and still have really good days? Why? Because that guy is able to recognize that maybe the way a bird's working down a rip, or way a bird is sitting on a wooden shoreline, or you go around a corner and there's 30 birds and they're all at the water's edge versus 30 birds that are 30 feet up in the tree. Those are two different messages to me,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, in today's world, we're so busy hauling ass with our big, beautiful Yamahas and our boats. And sometimes I think we run past, or we're just not looking for that subtle little thing that can be the difference. And I think if we just slow down a little bit, I even saw that day we caught the 50 sailfish in Guatemala. At 1:00, we've made 3 or 4 mistakes, all 3 of us. And I go, guys, let's slow down. It's not automatic. Let's take a little breath. We're all really tired here, but we got to step back, slow down a little bit. And the slower you go, the more effective you're going to be. Perfection comes with knowing how to make it work. But with perfection comes speed. So why do we try to go fast when we haven't perfected it, you see? And so I think that's one of the things that we have to do is just slow down a click or two. It's not going to change much, but it can make a huge difference in the result of the day.
Well, and I think that's also our last guest on our podcast was Bill Dance. And he asked, where do you think some of the biggest fish are caught in a tournament? And we're like, we have no idea. And he said, around the boat ramp, So
right.
You just never know. So give it a shot.
Yeah, and I think, another thing, people don't learn their electronics. They invest all this money in electronics, and they know, Captain Rick, John and I talk to people all the time. They know 10% of what their electronics do. They don't know about A-scope or sonar rewind, or, they go and buy this nice, expensive radar, but they don't know how to use it. And, just spend some time learning your electronics, learning how to read your sonar, learning how to read the bottom. And I think that would make you a better fisherman. It hadn't helped me, but I'm still trying.
No, and Dow, you're 100% correct. I'll give you, we were talking earlier at the very beginning of this podcast about this serious fish mapping. So we were filming a Sportsman's Adventure episode. We're running 80 miles out into the Gulf off of St. Pete in Central Florida. So as we're running, I'm sitting there, the boat's on autopilot, and we're just cooking, headed out like we're supposed to do. And I said, you know what, let me turn on this fish mapping while we're making this run. So I turn on the fish mapping, And then I look, and there's this plankton surf front that is a number 4, and it's 4 miles in front of me. So I go, isn't that something? And I'm not kidding. Right about the time that I recognized the distance I was from it, I started to see little pods of bonita popping stuff on the surface. When I got to the exact line, and the line went from southwest in the inshore kind of to the northeast, and then started to hook back offshore, I'll be son of a gun if the highest concentration of bait was right when I crossed the line. And I can give you several examples of that. And guess what? I would have never learned that if I didn't turn it on while I was in the mode of running. And certainly it gave me more confidence to pay more attention to it. In this last sailfish tournament, even though we came in 13th place, it wasn't because this fish mapping was telling me that we were where the fish were. And in our pre-fishing, we kept that in mind. It just, I think a big part of knowing your electronics dial is so many times there's certain things that show you an advantage, but like in the case of fish mapping, if it says don't go there, you have a down dwelling or you have very little front, but this is where you want to fish. Well, it's helping eliminate 50% of the non-productive area.
Right.
That's
right. Yeah.
It's to me, it's like the color gain of what we experienced years ago when we were able to adjust the gain on our Garmin's. What a difference that made. And then we came out with side imaging. And to me, the side imaging is for the inshore fishing down along structure, certainly live scope, is a huge, huge advantage of what we didn't have before.
Absolutely. So, and we were lucky enough, you and I, to use that about a year and a half ago, and we were catching some snook using the side view. And it's amazing of what you can actually see now. During that trip, I was fortunate enough to get on the Florida Insider Fishing Report and do a couple episodes with you on there. So my next question, Rick, is what do you like more, filming in the studio TV shows or filming on the boat?
Well, it's kind of, I love them both. And the reason why, I didn't get in this business to be sitting in an office. That's like taking a tiger and putting him in a cage. And
we know how you feel because the last few months we've been in the office, which Dow and I aren't used to that.
Yeah, it sucks. I mean, but going and standing next to Bree and doing TV and watching what she brings to the table and hearing the captain's enthusiasm about their local regions and what's happening in their region, and then getting to spend time with Dave at the workbench and him teaching me different techniques. We're never too old to learn, and him showing me new products and how that product can help me become a better fisherman or more comfortable fisherman if it's in an apparel industry, But that you get pumped up about going on that show and talking to your fan base, and you get to do it weekly. So that's a whole nother animal. That's like the professional athlete that gets to go play in front of a live crowd, so we have this live audience that we talk to weekly, but make no mistake about it, there's no substitute for pitching a mackerel to a 300-pound blue marlin or casting a fly to a laid-up tarpon in 6 feet of water and watching him eat it. So there's kind of two different mindsets. Being out there in the outdoors, for me, that's my release. Some guys love to go to the gym, and I certainly love that part of my life too. But being able to go and spend the day on the water and then watch a guy catch his first big snook, or watch a guy catch his first tarpon. I mean, I get to relive that all over again because of guiding him to that, and so there's no substitute for that. Or taking a kid and watching him catch his first redfish. You can't, there's nothing to beat that, So
Yep.
I don't know. They're two different animals and they're kind of treated differently, but I love them both. I can say that.
Yeah, the variety is good.
Mm-hmm.
Captain Rick, I know we've been talking about the GXM antenna, but you have a great partnership with SiriusXM and Garmin. How else do you use the GXM 54 to help you on the water?
Well, I mean, certainly being able to watch which way the thunderstorms are moving in the bay boats and in the little technical poling skiff, and then being able to look at the wind conditions and the marine zones. Because think about this, Dow, a lot of times my customer will be staying in Isla Morada in the middle of the Florida Keys, and I'm running 54 miles to the west coast to get out of the east wind. And if I get on that west coast, I can be on the lee. But I might get over there and the fishing evaporates, or it's not what I expected it to be. And now I have to decide, okay, what's plan B? And to be able to go into the Garmin, pull up SiriusXM weather and see what the wind conditions are back over on the ocean during tarpon season and what wind directions are, it just makes it a lot better educated decision making on which spot I'm going to go to, because I can see what the wind's doing and I'm 50 miles away. But then I also equate the tide, and then I know, okay, now all I got to worry about is there going to be somebody sitting there. So, those two products to me allow me to be a lot smarter and save a lot of time and fuel and running around trying to figure out where I need to be, like we used to do 20 years ago.
Yeah, I know. Like you said earlier, you found the plankton. That you can also see weed lines, and I'm a sucker for a weed line, so I'll stop on any weed line. I don't care how big it is. And like you said, back in the day, if I had a tool that could show me where weed lines were, oh my gosh.
Well, it just puts you in a situation where, again, like I said before, you're eliminating water that maybe isn't productive, and you're putting yourself in a place that now you're in the batter's box, and it's just a matter of you hitting the ball.
Right.
All of this great technology is no guarantee to catch them, but it certainly can put you in and around where they are. You still got to go catch them.
True.
So, Rick, you're a captain, you're a TV show host, you film on boats. What is the most fun part of your job?
Well, I'm going to tell you that certainly, going to new places is a lot of fun. This year, I'll share this with you, John. Back in the days, in the late 80s, early 90s, I guided over in Walker's Cay, which is in the northern part of the Bahamas. And there was a show called the Walker's Cay Chronicles. It was hosted by Flip Pallet. And on the bank there, 19 miles to the southeast of Walker's Cay, there's a big island called Sail Key. And we took the Starbright, has a 66-foot Viking, and we towed the Pathfinder behind the Starbright Viking, and they have a Maverick on the bow of the Viking. And we went to the places that I fished 30 years ago. And I took Ridge, ran the camera boat for me, and to be able to show him those places.
Yeah, that's just incredible. And we were talking to Captain Vinny Lasorsa, and one of his favorite places is fishing in the Bahamas. Mm-hmm. And it's funny how many people talk about it, and it's just right around the corner for us. So it's an easy place to get to. Yeah, and to show him where I was 30 years ago and how we did it with a 50 tiller on a 15-foot Dolphin super skiff with no electronics. We just ran compass heading across big giant water. It was pretty cool to share that with him, and where
where we were located. And then I'd say, Bub, I used to come here and I'd throw a jig in here. This was before gulp, or we had fish bites back then, but there was no shapes. And we threw, while we were there just, a month ago, we threw these fish bite shrimp in there on a 3/4 ounce jig head and catching 15-pound mutton snappers and
nice
big yellow jacks. And we caught a bunch of bonefish. But the cool part was, again, sharing it with the next generation of anglers and him seeing it like I saw it. And it was just so cool to be able to share that with him. And I think that's part of the part I love about my job is while we're filming, my son is really getting educated. And sometimes if he's not in front of the camera, he's usually behind the camera and making sure that the camera boat's in the right place so that you guys at home, our viewers and our fans, can feel what we feel and what we see. And that's what we believe makes really cool TV shows,
Yep.
So sharing it with him is really a big plus for me these days, whether it's, sailfish in Casavilla Lodge in Guatemala or the Bahamas. And then last week we're in Louisiana together. So think about that. For the last 30 days, we were in Guatemala, the Bahamas, and Louisiana together, working our asses off. But the point was that we're still fishing, doing what we love,
Yep.
Yeah. So Captain Rick, what would be your perfect day on the water?
Oh man, I tell you, the perfect day on the water. It's so funny that you asked that, Dow, because Saturday we had the most beautiful and epic day. I have a friend that I've been fishing for 30 years. He has a place down in Isla Morada. He has a Pathfinder. We jumped in his Pathfinder. When we pulled out of the marina, it was slick calm as far as you could see. And it was that way till dark. And we went to all of these cool places, saw thousands of tarpon, and only caught one. The part was that they were just moving from the Gulf for this winter stuff that goes on. And again, showing it to Ridge, sharing it with Ridge. And even though our success wasn't very high, it was still just an epic day because of the weather and the fish that we got to see. Every place we went, it was something different, but it was the same species. It was just the way they can do things and the way they act sometimes. And that's what makes a fun day of fishing. When it's calm in Everglades National Park, and John, I think, can attest to this, you see every little thing that moves. And so many times, the other day, we went over this bomb hole with his Garmin and the side imaging, and I had it zoomed in to 50 feet. We dropped from 10 feet to 15 feet, and you could literally see on the side imaging and the down view a sawfish laying on the bottom.
Wow.
And to me, that's really cool. And those guys, again, oh, man, look at that. It was like watching TV underwater. So
that's pretty cool. All right, Captain Rick, it's time. It's the time of the show where we're going to ask the not so serious questions. So, John, why don't you fire the first question?
All right. First question, Rick. As a little kid, what was the best Christmas present you received? And then what was the best Christmas present you received as an adult?
So as a little kid at 8 years old, my dad bought me an over and under shotgun. And I just thought that was the coolest thing ever. I had a family that we hunted and we fished, and to get a new shotgun for Christmas, he cut the stock down and made it fit me perfectly. And then probably as an adult, my whole life, I always wanted a red Porsche, and I would never spend the money to buy it for myself. But she bought me a Porsche in 2016 for Christmas. And that was probably one of the coolest gifts.
Wow, that's funny because Dow asked for the same thing, a red Porsche, and then he came home and his porch was painted red. So totally different. Lost in translation there.
Yes, of course.
I spelled it wrong.
Right?
All right. Captain Rick, just between me and you, I promise I won't share this, but I'm a big inshore fisherman, redfish. That's my go-to. What's the number one redfish lure for inshore?
Well, I like a 1/4 ounce Bass Assassin Pro Elite jig head with, it depends the time of year, either with a Bass Assassin sea shad or jerkbait, or that's if we have the bait fish in the time of year that you're fishing, or if it's this time of year when it gets cold and you're using a shrimp silhouette, then I like it with a fish bite,
Right.
and bouncing it or moving it real slow along the bottom, you can't beat it.
I'm so glad you didn't say gold spoon, because I have never caught anything with a gold spoon. I've got 50 of them, but
Right. Me too.
Well, Dow, I'm going to tell you with the gold spoon, if it's anything other than a 1/4 ounce, you need to throw it away.
okay, 1/4 ounce.
There
And
you
the
go.
second thing you need to do is when you throw a gold spoon out, treat it like a search lure, like a buzz bait. Just reel it back. Do not twitch the rod tip.
I got you.
If
Okay,
you
good
twitch
tip.
the rod tip, then you're breaking that vibration that the lateral line of the fish feel, and it won't be the same. Just throw it out and reel it as fast as you can reel it without it skipping on the surface, so it's really vibrating, and watch the difference.
I'll try that.
That's a
All
good
right.
tip. So, Rick, I know you've probably had dozens of boats through your lifetime. What was the very first boat you had growing up?
So the first boat I had a Terry, a 16-foot Terry bass boat, with a little 40 outboard on the back. And I really thought that I was the man, with that. And then later on in life, my first guide boat was a Hughes bone fisher. So those were the boats that I first started with.
Nice.
Captain Rick, do you have any superstitions when it comes to fishing?
Oh man, if you don't, then you're not really fisherman. I'd say my biggest one for sure is the bananas on the boat.
Right.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm so superstitious about the banana. I won't allow anybody to come on the boat with banana boat sunscreen. I don't buy Fruit of the Loom underwear because they have a banana on the label. And then people go, well, they bring the banana and I see them in the car and they eat it in the car and they go, well, it won't be in the boat. I said, no, it still will be on the boat. It'll be in you. So throw that dumb bitch and banana away.
That's hilarious.
That's it.
So, with all the change in technology just in the last 5 or 10 years, what do you think fishing is going to look like in 50 years, from baits, electronics to boats?
Well, I think on the boat side, I think you'll have electric outboards. They've already tried some of that. I mean, I saw a hint of that a year or so ago at the Miami Boat Show. Or they'll have diesel outboards. And then I think what'll happen is that on the electronic side, we'll have, instead of all this chart plotting and whatnot that we have, we'll have taken the live scope to, 25 different generations of live scope. And it'll be like sitting in an arena somewhere watching a live sporting event. It'll be underwater. And then I think what'll happen too is that the scented plastic world will become so advanced that it'll be better than real bait itself, and that it won't fall off the hook and you'll be able to catch. I'm already starting to see it with fish bites. You're catching 6 or 7. We caught in that bonefish show we did in Walker's Cay, we caught 6 bonefish and 1 snapper off of 1 fish bite shrimp. So you're already starting to see us advance in that way.
Yep.
And I think that's probably going to be it.
I agree. Captain Rick, how old were you when you caught your first fish, and do you remember where you were?
Oh, absolutely. My mother worked for a guy named Mr. Mack in Miami, and he owned the Coconut Grove uh, Convention Center, and he owned this place out west of Miami called Holiday Park, and still there. And she was a bookkeeper, so she would take me out there with her to go get the books, and she'd give one of the guys that would sell in shiners or worms or whatever. She'd say, "Hey, take Rick down to the dock and try to catch him a fish or something while I collect all this receipts and all the bookkeeping that I need to do the books." So I don't know how long it was, but the guy would take me down to the thing and the dock, and we'd sit on the dock, and I had a little push button, Zebco. Who doesn't ever have his first rod and reel was a Zebco 202.
Yep.
So he put a little night crawler on there, and we threw it out, and I watched the bobber, and the bobber went down. I was 2 years old or 2.5 years old. The bobber went down, and he says, "Reel." So I started reeling, and this little bass, a little bank runner, 10-inch bass, comes up jumping, and I see it jump, and I turned around, I put the rod over my shoulder, holding on to it, and ran up the embankment, dragging the fish up the grass because I was scared from the fish jumping. And the poor bass, I drug him right up on the grass, and then back then you had Polaroids pictures. Remember those days? You pushed the button and the thing came out.
Oh yeah.
We carried the little bass all the way up to the office where they sold bait in the tackle store and the snacks and everything. And my mother had a Polaroid, and she took a picture of me in the Polaroid.
Wow. You don't happen to still have that picture, do you?
Oh boy, I wish I did, but no.
Oh, that'd be great.
I do have a picture when I was 4 of a big barracuda I caught, which was my first saltwater fish, over at this place called the Berry Island Club, which is 400 yards up the road from my house in Chub Key with my grandfather.
Nice.
That was my first saltwater fish, and I have that picture here somewhere.
Yeah, you got to share it sometime and let people see it, unless you already have. So that'd be kind of neat.
All right, I'll do that just for you, John.
So, Rick, I know you have fished all over the world. If you could pick anywhere in the world to fish, where would you go?
Probably on my bucket list right now is the Great Barrier Reef, and not to marlin fish. I would want to go there and either jig or throw lures on the inside of the reef for all those reef fish they have. They got those big they call them sea trout, or they have these cods, and they look like big bass and groupers and all kinds of cool stuff. I love jigging with a big bait casting reel, or a conventional reel with braided line, and feeling that bite. So and just getting my ass slammed onto the gunnel would just be the bomb, That would be just so cool.
Yep.
So I think that'd be it.
Captain Rick, we had Mr. Bill Dance on last show, and he's the king of funny stories and bloopers. Do you have any funny fishing stories you could share?
Yeah. So when the first technical poling skiff, the Maverick HPX, it was called a Mirage, came out, they had all these underwater gunnels, so it was in a fishing situations very, very quiet and stealthy poling, 16 foot long with a little 70 on the back. And so I'm polling this lady who was a geometry teacher. Her name was Marcia Coven, and she was 4 foot tall and probably 4 foot wide. And she loved to fly fish for tarpon. She wanted to fly fish for anything, but it was in October, and these tarpon had pushed into this bay where they'd followed mullet in there, and there's mullet everywhere, and they're laid up in 4 feet of water. So imagine this, Dow, that this woman standing on a casting platform in front of me, 16 feet away, and I stick the pole down, and I just said to her, "Marcia, isn't it amazing how quiet this boat is?" And she goes, "It really is quiet. There's no hull slap at all." And I stick the push pole down to get ready to push another, to push the boat forward. I put it a little forward of the the polling platform, and it spooks this 150-pound tarpon. And he literally jumps between me and Marcia over the console and lands basically what would be her 3 o'clock behind her. You see? So she turns around. It lands to the right of the boat. She turns around to the left and looks at me and goes, "Did you hear something?" And there's this hole in the water the size of if you drop the pickup truck off of the Skyway Bridge into the water, you know. I mean, and I just couldn't tell her, Marcia, there was a 150-pound tarpon. It's what we're here looking for. Just jump between me and you, because she'd have thought it was some BS fish story.
Right.
But because all she saw, she didn't even see it. She turned away from it and just said, "Did you hear something?" To this day, I still giggle about that.
That's great. Do you have, Rick, any memorable fishing bloopers from your TV show that you can share?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many of them, but certainly one that comes to mind, we were filming with a guy named Marty Arostegui. He's a guy that came over, and the Cubans came from Cuba in the 70s and the 60s when Fidel was taking over, running them all out of there. And this guy actually started the Health Humana, and he was very wealthy. But he's 4.5 foot tall. He's caught more world records than any other individual alive, not guided, but personal world records. The first guy to ever break 300. And he was one of my great clients. And he and I were fishing in the backcountry of Everglades National Park for snook. And we poled down this creek. It was in March. I'll never forget it. Real low water because it'd been dry spell. And he throws this little soft plastic down the middle of the creek. It's only 3 feet wide. So if you throw down the middle, any fish to the left or the right is going to see the lure as it comes through. Anyway, he hooks this big snook, 15-pounder in 3 feet of water. And the fish goes ballistic, and he comes running right at us, sees the boat, hangs a hard left, jumps up into the bushes, and we're filming this. Jumps up in the bushes, and I'm yelling at him, "Marty, open the bail, open the bail, open the bail," because the line won't break if the line's not tight. And I'm thinking I can go push the line through there and break off the branches where he jumped. Well, anyway, he didn't open the bail. The fish jumps up into the bushes, comes crashing out back into the water, and we see him as clearly as day, and breaks the line. And silence. And he looks at me in this Hispanic accent. He goes, "Open the bail." This fish was not to be had. He went through 30 pieces of wood. Open the bail. It was so classic, of that snook encounter in real shallow water, and he didn't open the bail, so that fish was not to be had.
That's hilarious. Well, that's great stories there, Rick. We're going to move on. This next section here we like to do is rapid fire questions. So I'm going to throw 10 rapid fire questions at you, and just right off the top of your head, just pick the one that comes to you first. Are you ready?
Ready.
All right. First off, favorite pizza topping?
Meat lovers.
Favorite snack on the boat?
Dion's chicken, fried chicken.
We had that. Yes.
I've heard about that.
Yep. 3 things you would bring if stranded on a deserted island?
A lighter, a fishing rod, and a bag of fish bites.
Nice. Nickname your parents or friends used to call you?
They used to call me Ricky. And then my friends to this day call me Ricky Dicky. And the reason Ricky Dicky is because if you piss off Ricky, you usually get Dicky,
Nice. Favorite musical group?
The Eagles.
Oh, nice. What hairstyle did you have in high school?
Bub, when I had hair, it was real thick afro. I was the only white guy in South Dade High School in 1980 to carry a fro pick in my back pocket.
I'm sure you've got a picture of that.
We need pictures of that too. So
We do.
we got some Throwback Thursday stuff on social media that we need to see here, Rick. So we'll be looking forward to those.
All right.
All right, pick one: super strength or become invisible.
I want to be invisible.
Nice. What is your most unusual talent?
I have a photographic memory.
Nice. And finally, your favorite Garmin Marine unit.
The 8600 series, because of all the features, of course.
Yep, I think that's the consensus of most people too. Well, perfect. And Rick, we want to thank you for joining us on this episode of Behind the Chartplotter. We really appreciate you answering our serious and not so serious questions. Hopefully, we didn't put you too much on the hot seat. And don't forget to catch Captain Rick Murphy's Sportsman Adventures on Discovery and Pursuit from January to June, and on Fox Sports Sun from April to March. And also don't forget to watch him on Texas Insider Fishing Report, on Fox Sports Southwest or AT&T Sportsnet. And finally, catch him on Florida Insider Fishing Report on Fox Sports Sun.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Captain Rick. That was a great interview. Join us next month on Behind the Chartplotter, where we'll be joined by another very special secret guest. Stay tuned. On behalf of John and myself, we want to thank you for joining us. Until next time, we'll see you on the water.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about you. Let's talk about all the things Garmin has got you through. We can talk about lakes and the ocean too. 'Cause our host Dow and John wanna hear about the fishing you do. 'Cause we took our Garmin to the ends of the sea. The radar led us where we needed to be. Nothing we can't find in all the water. We want to hear about the holes and the beds and the reef, the keepers and the roughs and the catch and release. Let's talk about everything from reel to bobber. Behind the Chartplotter.